Welcome back, guys. My name is Chris. This is dezignzone, and this video is just going to be kind of a for fun video. It's more of an extension off the last video I did, which was the fix blurry faces video. This one's going to be more of a face swap type video. It's going to be the same concept, but we're going to do basically two faces, and it's going to be more of a humor type video. So let's just get right into it. And this is going to be the same picture we used in the last video, which was of my friend and his daughter. Let's see. And we're going to use the one that we ended up finishing. Okay, so this is kind of where we left off in the last video. We've got a face that was already swapped, but what we're going to do is we're going to flip-flop my buddy Jeff and his daughter. So let's go ahead and zoom in. And let's start by cutting out his daughter's face. To do this one, let's go ahead and use the lasso tool, and I'm just gonna left click and drag the button down, and we're gonna make a couple different layers here. Let's go ahead and right click on this and hit layer via cut, or I'm sorry, layer via copy. That's going to separate her face, similar to what we did in the last video. And now while we have this tool out, let's go ahead and cut out Jeff's face as well. So I'm just going to click and hold the mouse button down. And just so you know, I'm using the lasso tool this time. Last time I used the magnetic lasso tool, which automatically snaps to a grid. This one just gives me more manual ability to control the cut myself. And since I'm zoomed in so far on this one, it tends to work pretty good. But basically, these tools on the left are for your personal preference. So if you're better with one, then go ahead and use it. But just to show you that there are more options, I'm using this tool. So let's do the same here. Let's right click and choose layer via copy. Oh, and I actually made a mistake there. I did not have the background layer highlighted, which happens pretty often, but that's not a problem because we can go ahead and hit OK, choose the background layer here, and then we can go right click layer via copy. You'll notice that the selection that I previously did is still there, so that's good. No harm done. So let's hit layer via copy. Now Jeff's layer is on its own layer, and I'm going to go ahead and name these. So Jeff on that one, Ev on that one. There we go. So you'll notice that now that that layer is on its own, we could move it around and play with it. So let's go ahead and just move his face down, and we're going to need to drag Jeff's layer on top of Ev's layer. And we're going to need to resize it here. I can already tell it's a little too big for her head. So, and I'm also going to do a positional change here. He's kind of looking off to his left a little bit, whereas she's kind of looking off to the right a little bit. It's very slight, so we probably wouldn't need to do this, but it'll just make it look a little more natural. So to do that, let's go Edit, Transform, and Flip Horizontal, and just drag his face. And we're also going to need to do a resize. So to do this, let's go edit, free transform, and that's going to give us our sizing tools on the, our scale tools on the corners. So let's just, I'm going to hold the shift key down, that way the face stays in proportion, and just drag his face down to a good size where it fits on her face. We'll say right around there to start with. We can always change it if we need to. Maybe just a little bit smaller. And I'm actually going to widen it just a little bit. I'm going to release the shift button, that way it comes out of proportion. And just these small proportional changes like that isn't going to make a huge deal. You're not going to notice it as much since it's coming out of proportion. But her head is just a little bit wider when we shrink his head, so it's almost necessary. That way his eyes don't look like they're too close together. So now that we did that, I'm going to shrink his head just a little bit more, and that looks good right there, just so we can get his whole smile on the head. So okay, so now let's go ahead and hit the check mark, and then I'm hitting the arrow keys over just to move it over a little bit, just so it looks centered, and that looks good right there. Alright, so now that we've got his head positioned good, I'm actually going to lower it just a little bit more, and let's just shrink it just a little bit more. There, that looks good. Okay, so now let's check mark. Alright, so now we're going to start doing the same thing we did in the last video, where we just take our eraser tool, and I still have it set up the same way I did before, but I'm just going to start erasing around the edges. The skin tone is actually pretty good, but I might do a little fixing with that later. Now this is going to be a little bit different, being that his face has, or he has facial hair, and she obviously doesn't. But that's alright. We're not going to try to move his facial hair over. If some of it comes over, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I probably should have gotten more of his eyebrow too, but that's alright. We can blend that in. And I'm just quickly doing this. If we wanted to, we could get even closer and try to get it more precise. Just to make his eyebrows look a little bit better. Do that. And I'm noticing that I actually erased around just underneath his eyes a little too much, and I'm starting to see her eyes poking through. So let's back up. Let's go Alt Control Z. Right around there. Okay. Alright. So I just backed up a little bit. I just got to make sure I don't erase underneath the eyes, because we were going through to the next layer. But anyways, now that we've erased around the edges, let's go ahead and go Image, Adjustments, Brightness, and let's just brighten his head up a little bit so it matches, and bring the contrast up a little bit. Alright, that looks good right about there. and let's hit OK on that. I'm going to zoom out to get a better picture, a better look of it. That's pretty funny right there. So I think that's pretty good there for his face. Let's go ahead and focus on hers now. So I'm going to select her layer and drag her face up to Jeff's. And let's zoom in. That's also Control Plus. And we're going to need to just, let's go back a little bit. We're going to need to resize her face a little bit. That was just edit, free transform. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to try to stretch it vertically this time rather than horizontally. And part of the humor in the baby pictures is the fact that you usually have to make them much bigger than they actually are. So we just need to make sure her face is centered and right around there. And now we can start move it over just a little bit more. All right, now I can start erasing. Eraser tool. And by the way, the eraser tool I'm using, or the brush I'm using is this one right here, and it's set to 88 pixels with the opacity right at around 50%. And if you didn't see my last video, go back and watch that, and you'll see that I explain this a little bit more clearly. But we're just going to erase around the edges, just like we did on that video. Just take your time going around the edges. For the forehead, you can usually get rid of most of it. Oh, I gotta back up here. I accidentally went into her eyebrows. Control Z. Oh, we must have gone back too far. That's all right. Let's go ahead and go with it. So let's just keep erasing. Try not to erase all her eyebrows. All right, now let's try to darken her face up just a little bit. I'm actually going to add a little rotation to it too. There we go. Apply. And then to darken it, image adjustments, brightness. Okay, and then bump the contrast just to darken the blacks and hit OK. All right, so that's pretty much it there, guys. We're not going to actually take any more time than we did here, just because I just wanted to show you the basic concept of doing the face swap method in Photoshop. So as you can see, we've pretty much flip-flopped their faces around here, and this is similar to what you would see in like a Snapchat app and what's being done there. Well, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you for stopping by, and make sure you subscribe and rate my videos a thumbs up or thumbs down based on what you thought. So thanks again, guys, and we'll see you next time.